Hey, what's up guys? Koolaid here. Welcome to another episode of Killing Time with Koolaid. Today's topic of discussion is going to be the max unit, and we're not going to do any mail or anything, no updates today, because this is probably going to be a little bit lengthy, quite a bit to talk about. But the reason I want to talk about the max specifically is because it was quite a hot topic of discussion for a while there, especially after the Zoe Max nerfs, and I would like to see maxes change to some degree. I wouldn't like to see them removed from the game. I heard some people grumbling about that. I think that's kind of silly. I think they're an important part of Planetside and a part that I want to see left in the game, but I do want to see them changed. I would love to see them have a full review at some point. So what I'm going to talk about today is sort of going to be my vision of how I would like to see maxes changed without being completely redone or anything like that. Just some slight, maybe not slight changes, but some changes that I think would be for the better. So before I get started on all the changes, I would like to kind of give my brief history of how I play the max and how much I played the max. You know, when the game first came out, I play NC mostly, and you know, I had a blast with the scatter maxes, the hacksaw maxes. Yes, they were overpowered, and they truly did just dominate. Silly easy to use. You know, back then maxes only cost 100 resources, so you could pretty much have a max up whenever you wanted all the time, which is not too much different than now. But you know, I quit playing the max after a couple of months. It just became boring to me. It did, because it doesn't take necessarily a lot of skill to use. You know, anybody can get into a max and have a decent kill streak with it. That's kind of my point. So I kind of quit playing it. Also, you know, it wasn't really desirable to upload max footage because not many people care to watch that because of the points that I just made. So I did quit playing max. They did eventually get nerfed. The NC maxes did, and I probably went 6 months without spawning a max. A lot of that was due to the breaks I took from the game, but I just didn't want to spawn a max. So after I came back, I did get a lot of questions about the Zoe max. Do I think it's overpowered, etc. So I made it a point to make not only a VS max, but a TR max, kind of put a bunch of certs into them using mostly passive certs and getting some max footage. So all the stuff you're seeing from the TR and VS right now, I did that with the sole purpose of making myself play TR and VS max. Now, that's not to say I don't have fun. I actually really enjoy the TR max, and I'm not going to get into the max v max debate in this video. I just don't want to. That's for a whole nother video, a different day. But I do log on to my TR max probably once a week, as well as my VS max, and you know, play for an hour or so. So just to get a good feel of all three maxes. And through using all of this max gameplay recently, I've kind of come up with some changes that I think would help define the role of a max a little bit more. My main gripe with the max is that it's just too available, and it's not what I would consider an elite unit, which I think the max should be used as. As an example of this, I will log on to my TR character, I will spawn a max, use up all my resources, and by the time I'm done with my max, I will not only have enough resources to spawn another max, but I'll be full. I've been full the whole time and didn't even notice it, to use it on different items such as grenades, etc., whatever. So even though I think it got bumped up to 350 resources, I still don't think that's enough. Now, there's a couple ways you could change this. The easiest would just be to increase the resources again, bump it up to 600, 700, even 750. I honestly think that if you do want to use a max, you have to kind of make a decision that you want to save your resources for that max unit. And I think that's probably the easiest solution. Another solution would be to not only have it cost infantry resources, but also have it cost mechanized resources. So if you want to spawn a max, you might not be able to spawn a tank for a while afterwards, and that's a decision you would have to make. Now, one more kind of stretch, and this will probably never be implemented, and this is kind of a little more out there, is to make a whole new resource called Elite. It doesn't matter what it's called, but say we'll call it Elite armor resource or something, and have certain vehicles fall into that category, max being one, and these resources would have to be gained separately I actually think it would be cool to have a resource that would be gained not through the normal resource system, but by doing activities in games such as killing people and capping bases, but it would fill up rather slowly compared to the other resources, unless of course you were just a machine and you're capping bases left and right and killing people left and right. Now, this wouldn't just be used for maxes, you could use this for other vehicles that maybe aren't in the game, such as the new tank, I think it's Colossus, the NS Colossus, something like that. So you're not using a normal air, mechanized, or infantry resource. You're using a new one that is gained through just doing stuff in game. Now that's a little bit of a stretch, it's a little bit far out there, but I'm just trying to spitball some ideas here. And I also realized with the first two solutions I kind of gave out there, it's going to be a little bit different for everybody because of membership, or if you are running a resource boost, you're going to be able to spawn that stuff faster. And that's kind of why I like that other idea I sort of came up with. It would just have nothing to do with any boosts, anything like that. It would just be straight, you know, what you do in the game would allow you to spawn those. So my next problem with the max is that it is too easily revived. They did change this, and I think it was Performance Update 02. They did make it take a lot longer to revive maxes, but it doesn't matter that much. And I'll give a perfect example of what really bothers me when it comes to reviving maxes. How many times have you been in a biolab fight where there is a max outside of a spawn room? You kill him, he gets revived by a medic inside the spawn room that is perfectly safe from harm's way. The max gets up, you kill him again, and rinse and repeat. I actually killed a max, well, with help from my team. We killed a max 6 times the other day before he finally got revived, made it to his spawn room, and was sitting there at full health. So this guy died 6 times and suffered no consequences because of it. So that's why I think something needs to be changed with how maxes are revived. Now there's a couple different ways you could go about this. Actually, there's endless amounts of ways you could go about this. I don't want to remove the fact that you can revive maxes. I still want them revivable, but I think it needs to be I think there needs to be either a harder penalty or it needs to be harder to do. One thing you could do is possibly make it so it takes not only a medic shooting the max with his revive gun, maybe make it so you have to have an engineer and a medic both doing it at the same time, since it is, you know, both a mechanized machine and a human inside. You have to kind of cross the streams, if you know what I'm saying. One idea that I had that I really like is leave it so they're revived the same. You can even turn it back to the normal revive speed for this solution, except make it so when you revive a max, their armor is degraded. And what I mean by that is they revive at whatever health they're at. They get back, get to an engineer to repair. But now at this point, the engineer can only repair them to, say, 80% health. And then that's it. And then if they die again, get revived, the engineer can now only repair them to 60% health. And, you know, those values are not something I've really thought about. What would be fair? You know, maybe make it 10% at a time, 15% at a time, whatever. But then there would be a serious penalty to dying in your max. You wouldn't be able to go on forever. You know, once you got to a certain point, it really wouldn't be fun to revive with, you know, 20% health, and that's all you could have. You could even make it so that at a certain point you're just simply not revivable anymore. Say after 3 or 4 deaths, you just can't be revived. And I honestly think that would be really fair, and that would actually give a penalty to dying. Now, if you wanted to take that one step further, if you wanted to say, I don't think that's fair, I think I should be able to get my armor back, well, make it so that your armor does degrade when you die. So you say you get killed, you get revived, you have 80% armor. Maybe make it so you can actually go back to a terminal and use your current resources to get back to that 100% health capabilities. So those are just a couple ideas. I do think the reviving thing is my biggest issue personally with maxes, even more so than their availability. But both, I think, do need to be looked at. Alright, so those are my big nerfs for the max, I guess you could say. Not nerfing the max directly, but nerfing their availability and revivability. And honestly, with the stuff I'm going to propose in a second, I don't know if that would be enough. But the idea here for me is to make maxes a complete elite unit that you want to only spawn in that right situation when your team really, really needs a max, and I want it to be kind of a focal point of an offense. You know, right now you can go into a biolab and you'll see just maxes everywhere. I don't want it to be like that. I want them to be a little more elite and specialized. So those are my big nerfs. Now I do have some other changes that I think even you big max fans will like. The first thing I would like to see added to my new, max vision would be a couple NS weapons. And the reason for this is because I do like the diversity of the maxes. I like how the NC max is different from the VS max, it's different from the TR max. However, one of the reasons why I don't like playing NC max as much as I do as the TR maxes, it's not necessarily because they're worse. It's because I don't want to be forced to use shotguns as my anti-infantry weapon. I want to be able to play that max anti-infantry, but differently. So what I propose is to put in 2 NS weapons that you start off with. One would be a close to medium range weapon, and it wouldn't be as good as the shotguns. It would be kind of, there you get it for free. You start with one arm, you have to buy the other arm, of course. And you could even use the flamethrowers for this. I know they are still working on those. I don't know what their exact intentions are with those weapons. But something that would be good from close to medium range, but not as good as shotguns in close range. So you'd still have plenty of reason to buy your shotguns as an NC max. The other weapon I would like to see added is something that would be good from medium to long range. So that way, even as an NC max, I could still have a medium to long range weapon. I know we have slugs, but it's not really the same thing when you only have a max of 10 or 12 rounds or whatever. But a medium to long range, sort of just a standard machine gun type thing that you can put on each arm. And again, they wouldn't be as good as the TR miniguns or the VS whatever you call their weapons. It wouldn't be as good as those, but it would give the NC players an option to have a more medium to long range oriented weapon. And then with the shorter range weapon, you'd give the VS and TR players a more shorter range oriented weapon. That's pretty much what I'm trying to get at. I don't like undiversifying, if that's a word. I don't like undiversifying the maxes, and I do have some more changes that I'll get to in a minute that will help diversify them a little bit more. But I think in the weapon category, I think adding a couple NS weapons would be a really cool idea, and give all the NC guys that are sick of using shotguns and all the VS and TR guys that would like some more close quarter oriented weapons, a change of pace and the option to do that. Next, I would actually like to buff their survivability a tad. And the reason for that is because if I'm going to nerf their availability, nerf their revivability that much, I do want to make them a little more survivable, have them fit into that elite unit category. And the way I would go about doing this is simply remove kinetic armor as a defensive option or a suit slot option, and give that to every max built in. Give a max rank of kinetic armor built in, so they would automatically be more resistant to small arms fire. That's just a direct effect of me nerfing their availability and revivability. Another thing that I'd really like to see, and this goes without having any other changes at all, I would just like to see this no matter what, is more diversity in max loadouts. Currently there's just not a lot you can equip on them or change about them, and I pretty much run the same loadout on every max, all 3 factions. I run flak armor for the most part and charge. I do switch it up with my NC max with Aegis shield sometimes. Once in a while I will put on Zoe, even though I don't like it as much anymore, and again that's another topic for another day. I rarely equip lockdown. I do feel bad for you TR guys. Actually I don't, because I love your maxes so much anyway, but I would like to see a lot more diversity in max loadouts. And one of the ways you would go about doing this is just adding more slots, and of course you would have to come up with a bunch more skills, but I think that could be easily done. For instance, maybe you wanted to make your max more of a support max, so you could add a utility slot that would have things like a proximity radar. Maybe you could equip a smoke launcher, not necessarily a smoke launcher, but a smoke dispenser. So you could have to give something up that would make you maybe less survivable. But you could now be, fill a supporting role for your team more by blowing smoke out all the time. And it would have to be maybe a little bit better than a light assault smoke, something. I don't know. I haven't thought about these in great detail, but I would really like to see more diversity among maxes. Have them fill different roles. Again, all goes into that elite unit category that I'm trying to come up with. I'd also like to see more diversity in the Empire-specific max abilities. That doesn't necessarily mean adding more unique abilities, but maybe altering the ones that are already there. For example, you could take the Empire-specific abilities, make them a category of their own, and then give different versions of them. For example, you could take the Aegis Shield that currently absorbs all incoming frontal damage till it runs out. Maybe make one that will cover your front and sides, but have it only absorb half the amount of damage that the current Aegis Shield will absorb. Or maybe have it absorb only 50% of incoming damage. Stuff like that. It's a little bit harder when you start thinking about the Zoe and the TR lockdown, how you would actually change those. But, just through a little bit of brainstorming, and these probably aren't the greatest ideas, but just make different versions of Zoe where maybe you don't care about the extra damage, but you just want more improved run speed. So you wouldn't get any extra damage out of Zoe, but you'd get more run speed with that version. Or for TR Lockdown, which nobody really uses unless you're using bursters or something, maybe make different versions of that where one version, every 30 seconds, you will actually get an air-to-air rocket. Or every 30 seconds, you would get an air-to-ground lock-on rocket. Something like that, a shoulder-mounted rocket. And again, I haven't thought about this too much in detail because there's just so much you could come up with. But the main thing I would like to see is a lot more diversity in max loadouts. And like I said, diversity is something I'd like to see even if none of my other changes were ever to happen, which they probably won't. I'm just a guy doing YouTube videos that has no major impact on the game. So, I really want to see diversity. I want to make maxes just a little more fun, exciting to use. But I also don't want to see them everywhere in every battle, just ruining infantry fights, which is kind of what they do in a lot of fights right now. So anyways, guys, that's all I have. Let me know what you think about these ideas. Let me know if you have any other ideas. And again, I know a lot of these might be kind of far out there, and a lot of them might not really work well if you were to actually implement them in the game. Maybe my theory crafting is way out of bounds, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. But like the video is called, this is Killing Time with Kool-Aid, and you've just killed about 20 minutes with me, so I should wrap this up. So anyways, guys, as always, thanks for watching. I will talk to y'all later.
One, four.